Welcome to Your Story, His Glory with Janelle Barker. We are so excited to talk with our first double interviewees today. And we're going to be speaking with Jennifer Miller and her son, Matt Miller. And they go to Heritage. Jennifer has her master's from Liberty University in counseling. She's licensed in the state of Tennessee, and she has been doing private practice since not 2019 until present. She met her husband in 1979. She has 3 sons and 12 grandchildren. And Matt, we are here with you as well. And you're 37 years old and attended East TSU. He got married in September of 2017, and he has a son, Neelan, and a little daughter, Peyton. Super cute little kiddos. He's a contractor and has been doing that for a long time. And you have been sober for 3 years.
Almost, not quite. Just
All right. In August, big celebration. That's awesome. So that's going to be part of our conversation today about how you all came to the Lord, how He has influenced your lives, how that as a mother you have struggled with how do you respond when your child is in crisis and is walking in a very scary direction. And we're going to talk to you about how things, after growing up in a church, because I watched you grow up in this church, how that you could make decisions that would be destructive, and how that God redeemed you in that and has put you in a good environment with people who are praying for you and how you are living your life for Him. So, Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm so glad to have you. So, will you tell us a little bit about your story? How did you come to know the Lord? How old were you when you came to Jesus?
I was 17 when I met Jesus. I did not really grow up in church. My parents were of the greatest generation. And we went to church until I was roughly 11, I think. And then there was a period of upheaval in my family with my sibling who was 8 years older. And that went on for many, many years. I didn't handle it well, didn't have a lot of help with that because of the times. We were talking about the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And so I hid from people. I hid it from people because I didn't know how to handle it. And I had this one friend in high school, I'm going to cry, who took me to a concert. The group was called Hope of Glory.
Oh.
And the song I can still hear in my head, every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. And that's when I met Jesus.
Amen.
And He has been with me ever since. I walked away many, many, many times because I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Didn't really have the friends around me because that was high school. We graduated,
Right.
So I met Matt's father and my husband in 1979. And we started a home and a family, had 3 beautiful children. Came back to the Lord the strongest, I think, really. I'm going to cry again. When he got involved in Ground Zero and Praise Band and all of these things at Ridgecrest.
Oh, no.
Going with the youth. I went with the youth everywhere. And that's what brought me back the strongest to the Lord. And that has been instrumental in my life.
Can we pause and go back just a little
Yeah.
bit? Because, as a church body, now we know the emphasis on sanctification, big Christian word that means one-time experience, just pushing someone out and saying, okay, now you have Jesus, go live your life is not helpful.
No.
And so we actually do those Christian words, discipleship, and watching for people to love and learn and grow in Jesus as He sanctifies us. We in the past, I think, and the church that I grew up in, sometimes those pieces were missed.
Mhm.
And but with you having a teen experience, very much a
It
teenager
was so
kind
similar.
of
It was so similar. Yeah.
yeah experience that you would go to a concert, which you know I've been at Christian concerts and you see the response, and
Mm.
you're very prayerful, but is there a follow up? Like at how
Mm.
important that is, even for people who say, I that was when I knew Jesus. That's when I became a Christian, but I knew nothing else.
I think there isn't a they try to follow it at concerts now. The
Yes.
concert that I'm talking about was in 1974. It was incredibly small. It was just a local thing. I don't
Oh.
even know whatever happened to the band,
Wow.
but it was a God moment for sure.
Wow. How cool.
So
I hope they hear this.
that
I
would be
hope,
nice.
That'd be
yeah,
cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that
no,
would
it
be
would.
incredible for
Yeah.
them to,
Mhm.
you know, find out that their song and their obedience to the Lord changed someone's life.
And I will go back a minute. I was very involved in church when my children were little, and all the things. We went to Sinking Creek for 20 years, and before we came to Heritage. So, but I don't know that I was walking as closely. I was more depending on my strength, my control, my intelligence, all those things.
All
you know.
those things we
Yes. So I think we have to come to a place of brokenness
Mm.
to really depend on the
like
Lord.
that.
Mm.
I didn't like that. No, it's not fun.
Mm.
No,
Not
I
fun.
don't like that at all.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
But it's true sometimes. Okay, so you have 3 boys and you have them in church. And can we segue to you?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, how old were you when you became a Christian?
So I'll kind of do the cliff notes, not the cliff notes. It'll be all the important notes. So I went to a vacation Bible school when I was 7, and I did the altar call. I thought I was saved at that point, but I don't think I knew what it meant because we went to church, grew up in church, so heard a lot about Jesus, knew what he was, knew who he was, that kind of thing. I just don't think I fully understood the decision that I made
Sure.
at that point in time. Fast forward a little bit, I did, kept growing up in church. I was in the praise bands, I was in youth, I was doing all the things, going to all the camps. Kind of felt in my heart, I felt like I was saved, but I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
So in a similar kind of circumstance, a little bit bigger of a band, Casting Crowns, but I was at a Casting Crowns concert,
Yeah.
and I was worshiping and I was just overwhelmed in the middle of worshiping, and I just felt like I needed to be absolutely sure. So right then is when I actually I prayed the prayer, and I felt like, hey, here's where it started for me. Call it a rededication if you want to. I don't know what it was. I just know from that point in time, I started developing a relationship, not just I'm saved.
Right.
Okay.
And how old were you?
14. Sorry, did I leave that up? My bad.
Mhm.
14. Yeah.
So, I think that is a common testimony.
Mhm.
I really do. People, their parents take them to church. They have a moment where they understand I'm a sinner and I need salvation, but that in our young
Mhm.
understanding is all that we can understand and get out of that
It almost feels like,
experience.
oh, it's cool. Like a bunch of other people. I think is kind of how I felt at that time. Like, oh, all these other people have done. I want to do it too, type thing. And oh,
Yeah.
I want to be saved. Like I want to, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to encourage, obviously. But at the time, I didn't fully understand. At 7, I didn't think I fully understood what I was doing.
Sure.
At 14, I had completely. I was like, okay, I feel this. I felt it.
Right. Right.
So
And then I think a lot of times people go on to become more mature and actually make a decision that is not dependent on other people in their lives.
Right.
Like you said, maybe I want to be cool with my friends, or oh, my friend went up too, so
yeah, my
I'm
best
gonna
friend's up there. I
go.
want to go.
And I think for me, and I've heard other people, like it's college, it's whenever you are not told by your parents to
Mhm.
get in the car, you're going to church.
Mhm.
And you make that decision that you love the Lord and
Mhm.
you want to go because you want to grow in Him. It's
Mhm.
more of that personal relationship, and I
I,
think it
I
happens
think you were
differently.
at that concert.
I was. I can
You
still. I
went
can see you
to
in my head right now.
Well, you went
I
back
Oh,
to
did.
for the
I was
altar call. She was
counting.
for
Yeah.
people for the altar call, and I didn't go back in the altar call because I had a moment. I prayed. I knew what I was doing at that point in times, but I remember standing there by myself because you had went
Yeah.
back,
Is that the
and
concert that someone walked up to you and said,
yeah,
"Yeah,
it was so. There was a young lady up above. I say young lady. She's probably about my age at the time. Her pastor came down to me after the concert had been over, and I'm gonna get emotional talking about. Um, he told me that she looked down and saw me worshiping, and she said, "I want that," and she got saved that night. And it like,
wow.
so you never know who's watching.
That's
I had no
incredible.
idea anybody
Sure.
was
You
watching
weren't
me.
doing that
That
for a
no,
show.
absolutely
You
not.
weren't.
Like I said, I was feeling like I was getting that connection, and I had no idea that somebody else was.
Wow.
It's cool
The
to
real, authentic
yeah,
relationship with the Lord
yeah,
that others can see. That's incredible. I love that.
yeah.
That's
It's a
beautiful.
cool story.
So
I
when
love
you
that
see
story.
him having this, apparently it was a visible relationship change. As a mom, what did you think?
Well, it wasn't the first time that I had seen him worship because he's in the praise band. So, but it's probably the most beautiful feeling as a
Oh,
mom.
oh,
You know, there was a song when you graduated. Do you remember that song about Mark Harris, I think was his name, and it's like I don't care what else you do, just walk in the truth.
Oh
right.
yeah. I remember something.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. So you want to continue with your story, how that you were living your life for the
Mhm.
Lord, and tell us what
Get
happened.
into it. So I was in the praise band. I was in the youth group. I went to all the camps and stuff. All through high school. When we came here, when we came to Heritage, I was getting involved in kids stuff and doing all those things. I miss those things. Those were so much fun back in the day. And I started college. I was going to ETSU, and I just I kind of lost my way a little bit. But I will preface that with I didn't start to lose my way. I think when I went to college, the first mistake I ever made was uh, having sex. It was losing my virginity in high school. That was my first time that I compromised a moral, like an agreement between me and God, and that I can specifically look at that in my life and say that was the first mistake I made.
Hmm.
That was the very first time that I compromised any kind of, morals that I had, and that kind of snowballed.
So that kind of opened the door
It did.
for you giving yourself permission to live the way you would want to
Right.
live.
Yep. So, and when I get into college, then there's less eyes, or
Yeah.
there's less eyes and less sometimes, I don't know, then until some people come knocking on the frat house door. Yes, mother did that.
Yeah,
That's
they
fine, but hey, I would do that for my kids.
think
So
you understand.
I do. It changes a lot once you have children. Anyway. So yeah, I was just, I kind of got into college, and I got that freedom, and I had started making friends, and I was going out on the weekends, and things just kind of, like I said, they snowballed. And I got into, partying, got into alcohol, got into drinking a little bit here and there. It was nothing, it was fairly innocent at first. It was not like every weekend I was out getting blistered,
Yeah.
but it was fairly innocent. But the problem with a lot of those innocent things is you get that feeling, and you understand what it feels like, and you understand, oh man, this I can enjoy this, and then something bad happens. And when something bad happens, you think, oh, that made me feel better at that time.
Hmm.
Will that make me feel better now?
Gotcha. So I want to pause you because, I think a lot of times people have this perception that it's just college. Everybody does it. And now, from my understanding, it's not keg parties
Mm-mm.
and people bring in their own BYOB. It's more about gummies and pot.
Mhm.
So it kind of starts more extreme
Mhm.
and really opens a door to other kinds of medicating yourself.
Yeah.
So you're saying there was a transition between, oh, I'm doing this for fun,
Mhm.
and this makes me feel good, to I had a bad day,
Mhm.
and so I'm going to do this drinking,
Yep.
or and
Or I'm stressed out. I
I'm
got a test coming up, or it starts
I
as
need to
it's
blow off
little.
some steam.
Right.
We hear those phrases and they sound so innocent,
And I
and
think you convince yourself and justify it to yourself that it is in the beginning, and you don't even realize it as it becomes a problem until it's too late. Um, yeah, I when I was in college, I had I'll just call it what it is. It was one night stand with a girl. I was still, living outside of those things. I was slowly falling away, you know, at a at a pace. I was falling further and
It
further
wasn't
away.
altogether slow, but
Well, it didn't feel slow
to me,
to you, but I know it was
Right.
fairly slow. You just saw the you saw the pitfall. That's what you saw. And I had this one night stand, and basically we thought she got pregnant. And for the first 3 months of it, nobody even knew about it. I had covered that up. I was dealing with it myself. The girl and I had talked about it. She was going to get an abortion, and that was kind of it. And I hated myself. I absolutely hated myself for that, because that be agreeing to an abortion was I never ever thought I would be that person. Never thought I, but in that situation, I did agree to it. Fast forward a little bit, Ship tells me she couldn't do it, and I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, thank God he didn't go through with it. So I'm like, you know what? We're not together. We're not trying to be together, but let's be a parent to this kid, right? Named it, all this other stuff, and then through a very crazy circumstance, come to find it was all completely a lie. The girl had absolutely lied about the truth for 5 months, to the point of sending me ultrasound pictures. We used to talk about this child. Like I said, I named him. His name was Gabriel. She bought him
we
clothes.
all named him.
Yeah, I mean,
We
it
all
was.
loved him.
I don't know I don't know if anybody was here, but I got up in front of the church and was, laid hands on. They prayed over the situation, and it wasn't very long after that we found out the truth. So, and it took about 3 days, but it absolutely ripped me in half in my core. I mean, and I didn't know what to do, how to process. I remember calling her I had a test the next morning in biology, and I'd been sitting in front of my computer studying for 4 hours. And I was looking at an outline that I had been sitting there writing for 4 hours, and I didn't remember anything. I couldn't remember a single thing that I'd written. I didn't even, it was like I just fast forward. My body was just moving, and I didn't even know, I wasn't even there. And I called her at midnight. And I bet the people in the neighborhood that I lived in thought I was killing somebody. Because I mean, I was out in the back of this little confined neighborhood down here in Johnson City, just screaming at the top of my lungs, why? And I would, why me? Why did this happen? And I was angry at God, and it just it kept building and kept building and kept building. And I was just, I don't, when I ended that phone call that night at 2, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, I don't remember what time it was. I was just kind of like, you know what? We're not speaking right now. And that's when I kind of turned my back and went the other way.
On God.
Absolutely.
I remember those pieces and how painful that was. I remember praying for you and
Thank
your
you.
family in that, because it was such a shock to people that were not even involved.
Yeah.
that provokes you to say a prayer for somebody out of compassion, because why
Mhm.
would somebody be so cruel?
Mhm.
She
it
was very unwell.
She was,
unwell.
and just to throw, she and I have like kind of rectified the situation. Not rectified. We have talked. She apologized. She was very mentally ill. She had a lot of things going on. Like, so later in life, like 10, 12 years later, we were able to both apologize to each other for everything. And we're not like friends by any means, because I was very angry with her for a very long time. And it took a lot of prayer and a lot of self reflection and a lot of, a lot of different things, a lot of therapy, honestly, to come to a place where I was like, you were sick, I was sick. We were, it was just not a good situation. We were, and to let go of that anger and to have that forgiveness, I think was very, very important in my recovery and everything else, because for years I held this absolute. I'm glad I didn't see her. I would have hurt her physically, but I probably would have yelled, screamed, like, just for those years. I never saw her, never spoke to her. And finally, when we were able to, it's funny, she was a neighbor of my wife for years before my wife and I were like together. She never even knew, like, she knew the girl and had no clue. I told her the story afterwards, and, and she was like, that was her.
I know.
I was like, yeah, yeah. And,
Wow.
but it's funny how God works in those situations, how it's like after you get on the back end of it and you can reflect back, you can see where all those points were and where God was in that whole situation. And even though at the time I felt like I was cursed and I felt like everything was, I felt like I was being punished and God was doing all these things to me that I didn't deserve, when that is not what was happening at all. I was running from God. He was letting things happen that were going to happen. He was keeping his hand on it to where the worst things weren't going to happen, to where, he was saving me when I didn't even realize it. And now that I look back on it, I can look at so many different points in times and say, yep, there was God. Yep, that was him. I didn't think that was him at the time. I thought that was just the fate of the universe, like falling down on my shoulders. But that was God. And he was holding me, and I just didn't even know it.
I love that. And it's only because you can see God in that
Mhm.
and his grace to you that you could extend grace to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure of that, because I don't think anybody in their own power would be able to just say, I forgive you, let's move on. I think it takes supernatural strength that the Holy Spirit puts in us to recognize his grace and our need for him,
Mhm.
to be able to extend that compassion and love and
Absolutely.
mercy to someone else.
Mhm.
Wow. We all need it.
Yeah, for
We all
sure.
need it. So I know that was a horrifically scary time for you as a parent. And how do you respond when you see your child hurting so bad? I mean, it hurts my heart hearing about it this many years later. I know you were just broken. Um, how do you, as a therapist?
I wasn't a therapist.
Okay, you weren't a therapist
You
then.
go to Liberty and get a master's degree.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you do? That.
You
No,
learn how to deal.
But I can think back to before I knew what was going on with this young lady, and I knew something was wrong with him. I just didn't know what it was. And we went to dinner at Cheddar's one night, and
Vividly
he told
remember.
me what was going on, and I was like, "Is
That's
that
it?
all? We can handle that." It's
I felt like my life was ending and falling apart. She said, "Is that it?" I was like, "Is that it?"
we can handle it. It's okay. But yes, moving forward from that, the what happened with the church, and I think or at church, and it being so open, and it was a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
I believed she was pregnant too, and I had given birth 3 times. I mean, she was just saying all the right things, sending the pictures and all of this, so it was really hard.
Wow.
I wasn't so scared for you at that point though, because
No, it
that was
wasn't.
that was just the very beginning. When it got to the point where I knew that how serious it was, I was just terrified all the time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to trust God, but I would lay it down and take it back, and lay it down and take it back, and try to figure out what can I do to control this somehow so he's okay. And I know now that that was probably not at all what I should have done.
Okay.
Because in the end, I just had to surrender it, and say, even if whatever happens, you're still God and you're still good.
Yeah.
And I think I told them, even if you never stop doing these things, I'll always love you.
Yeah. I'm grateful that your relationship was such that you were willing to tell her.
Mhm.
I I think that's probably very unusual.
Mom and I have always been. I've always been. Mom's always been the best friend. She
No.
ran around all the, she came to all the events, ran around. She's always chaperoned, it was always and everything. So Mama was always there.
No.
I've always
We
been.
did the concerts
love that.
together, right?
Yeah, we did everything.
I love that. So, tell us how deep you got into destruction.
So at going back to how I said, you do all those things and they're fun at the time and they're innocent at the time, and then something happens.
Mhm.
I'd been working in restaurants and had been dabbling in other things, pain pills, other harder drugs, pain pills being the one that that was one that stuck. I noticed that pain pills didn't just cure like physical pain. If you're in emotional pain and it numbs you. And I was not just in emotional pain. I was like emotionally split open. Like I was an open wound.
Yeah.
I wasn't just like hurting. I was bleeding profusely is what I felt like inside.
Mm.
So, I had dabbled in those things before. So I said, well, let's see, and I started working. And when something works, you don't fix it, or, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. If something's working, you keep doing it.
Yeah.
And those things don't come with a warning label where they say, hey, if you keep taking these every day, you're going to get sick. If you try to stop, that doesn't come. Nobody tells you that. The drug dealer don't tell you that in the beginning. And then, let's say month and a half or so after the whole situation, and I had been dabbling daily and stuff, and I was like, you know what, this is getting expensive. It's kind of, I'm pretty sure was the thought I had at first. I was like, I need to take a break for a minute. So I stopped unknowingly and like went to class that next day, and I was sweating and my nose was running and I felt just achy, and I was like, what is going on with me? I felt like I was getting the flu. I really felt like I was getting sick. I didn't know what was going on. So I called a buddy of mine and I was like, hey, what do withdrawals feel like? And we start having this conversation. He's like, well, what do what's going on? And he tells me, or I tell him, and he said, yeah, that's, you're withdrawing. Come here. And he gave me a little something, an instant cure.
Wow.
I mean, instant. It's
So
done.
at that point, did you know that you were addicted to where you would have a withdrawal? Was that just a surprise?
That was absolutely out of left field. I was like, wait a minute, you get addicted? I had no
So you
clue.
didn't know you
I had
were
no clue you
addicted.
get like addicted. I'd heard of addicts and people, but I didn't, I thought it was mostly alcohol
Yeah.
and stuff. Pills, we're talking early, or late 2010. So this was like 2008, 9. This is when the pill mills down in Florida were crazy. It was the pill epidemic. They were everywhere. So no, nobody asked questions, or you don't ask questions. You don't think like, hey, in the moment, I don't know if it's gonna.
Right.
And so then you get stuck.
Yeah.
Then you're like, well, I have to have this.
Yeah.
I have to have this to feel better. And it kind of starts slow, but it develops over a short amount of time, really. It can get pretty bad. It was a daily thing. I stopped going to church. I was running around with just not the best people in the world. And that was just kind of like where I lived for a while. And there were spurts, what I call oil changes, where I'd stop for a little bit and maybe she'd send me somewhere, or something
Once
like that.
again, trying to control the situation.
Yeah, well, I would not have known what to do, and a lot of those times I had painted myself into a corner. A lot of the times, it was like I was in legal trouble or something, and it was either go to jail or go to treatment. So a lot of times it wasn't necessarily something you were trying to do.
No, but I
a lot of
was
times it
trying
was-
to stop you from feeling consequences that you probably needed to feel.
Probably.
Maybe
Feel
if you'd
like-
have felt,
yeah.
I sometimes wonder if you'd felt consequences sooner.
I don't know. Look at
But I don't know.
the way probation went the first time. That was
Well,
not
that's
fun.
true. Yeah, so.
There were a lot of things that I guess that we do in life where we, like she was saying, try to take control from God and letting it just play out the way it should play out. And I do it all the time in my life. I try not to, and I fault you not for ever doing it, especially now that I have children, and I can't even imagine what you were going through and what kind of torment that was. Because I would not, I can't, I can't even put it into words.
You can't even think
If
of
I was going through that with my kids, I can't even, like, I don't even want to think about it.
So, did you end up having to go to jail?
Several times. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I went, but I was bailed out, and I was, I didn't have to go sit and do my time ever really.
Yeah.
Um,
We hired lawyers. We
Yeah, we
did
did.
whatever we could to,
Right.
because I
not
mean,
get out of it, but soften them, because I couldn't
Yeah,
get out of
get
a
off.
lot of these things. It wasn't like, oh, we'll get you out of it. It was just like, well, we'll soften the
We'll make
blow a
it.
little bit.
Yeah. So,
You know.
so that I was going to ask, like, they say in jail you can get any kind of any kind of drugs, and I wondered if that increased your
The
usage. Of
Not really.
harder
It
things.
is that is a thing, but it's also extremely expensive, and
Oh,
like, unreal. You wouldn't believe it. Um, and I was never in a position when I was in there to be able to afford something like that.
Okay.
And I honestly, I wanted to get in and out as quick as possible, so I kept my head down. But what it did do is, when you walk into that place, you can't, you don't feel like you can show any kind of weakness, any kind of fear, any kind of anything. You have to walk in there with your head up, and because you're in a I don't want to say it's a vicious environment, like you go in there and everybody's fighting, because it's not like that. But if you walk in there and show any kind of weakness or any kind of fear, someone in there is gonna take advantage of you.
Hmm.
So you can't do that. And I can't walk in there with tears in my eyes like I want to, and tell somebody, like, "Hey, well, I'm scared. What do I do?" I gotta walk in there and make friends and act tough and put that hat on. And so you get an education in how to be a criminal, is what happens in jail, more
And
than
your
anything.
exterior becomes even more
Harder.
hardened.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so that process.
It doesn't help the situation, because
Yeah.
there's no, like, treatment. There's no rehabilitation in the
Sure.
jail system. It's
Sure.
I don't want to get off on that, but it's all money, and it's they could do a lot more, because so many people that are in there they're struggling. They're good people. They're having a hard time. They either can't get their license, or they can't get their kids. They're just struggling, and they need help. They need God. They need
Amen.
some form of treatment, some form of compassion,
Yeah.
because a lot of these people don't get that at all, and it's
Yeah.
not helpful.
We've talked before about all the roadblocks in your way,
Mhm.
and you had that
Yeah.
support. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about these last 3 years
Oh gosh,
and what,
yeah.
like, what you've had to dig out of.
The stuff that, over the last 3 years, just getting clean and getting my life back together, the money and the support. I don't know how somebody would do it without, having a supportive family, and having a decent job, and having, like, all these things. It's daunting, and it seems impossible. In the beginning, it felt impossible when I first started there. Not, it didn't feel impossible, but it felt daunting is a perfect word for it. It's very overwhelming.
Thank you for that, because I mean, you don't realize, and you think of people who have just kind of, the deck has been stacked against them, and those things, and well, they ended up making those bad decisions, and so they're where they need to be. That is really a a terrible perspective
Mhm.
for society to have. And I think it's good for us to hear somebody who grew up in a Christian home, who had all of the things that could have um, kept them from this hurt, but it still be so difficult to walk out of.
Satan's out there everywhere, and the
Yeah.
ones that he's looking for the most to attack the most are the ones that are the closest to. He ain't worried about the people that are already out there. He wants to drag away as many people as he can, and
Mhm.
he dragged me away for a little bit. He did.
Yeah.
He got a hold of me. He got his claws for a minute, but God,
But God.
but
Absolutely.
God,
God.
but God.
And, I think of, ultimately simplified, you wanted to be your own God
Mhm.
during that
Absolutely,
time.
yeah.
Mhm.
I had no interest in anyone dictating my life or anybody telling me you can't do these things, you shouldn't do these things. I turned my back not only on God, but just on my morals, on a lot of the things that, I never wanted to be a thief. I never wanted to steal. I never visioned that I would stick a needle in my arm because I did that plenty of times. But, when you're in it, you kind of you lose yourself
Yeah.
and you don't think of consequences. You just don't want to feel. And I just didn't want to feel most of the time. It wasn't about like, oh, I just want to get messed up or I want to kill myself. I just didn't want to feel.
Mhm.
I just didn't want to feel because feeling was too much.
And you had to surrender to let God be your
I needed to let him have that and heal me from that and trust him that, if I give him that, he can take care of it because he can take that load. I couldn't take that load. That was where I made my mistake in the beginning was even taking the load in the first place. But I was kind of so far removed and I had already stepped away so far that I was trying to be my own God. And I just wanted to cover it up and bury it and try to just put it out of my mind. And, as much as I love kids, that was not gonna happen. That whole situation, the way it did, I couldn't. I went through a period of 5 or 6 years where it was hard to watch TV because I would see a commercial of parents pushing their kids in a stroller down the street or something, and I'd just burst into tears. I'd be walking down the street and see a mom carrying her little baby and just lose it. It was like I couldn't go anywhere and couldn't do anything without something reminding me of this child that was never really real in the first place. That's what messed me up the most. We didn't have a miscarriage to say, oh, it was all a lie to it was real to us and
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
like we lost a baby,
Yeah.
in my head, I lost a child and it absolutely, especially after like, I went through that whole thing where it was like, I'll do the abortion and then I was like, I want to be a dad.
It
Like
was
I
a
want to
second
do,
chance.
yeah, I was like, and then it got ripped away. I was so like, I was so torn and so confused and so twisted that I didn't know which way was up or down.
Yeah. The
And
deception, the
yeah, it
lies,
was,
and the chaos that you were thrown into because of that.
yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer,
Mhm.
Matt has talked a lot about the destructive decisions and the drugs and just wanting to numb
Mhm.
and not feel, which means if he's checked out, you don't have your son.
Oh, it
And
was
he's not.
yeah, it was very much that way for a while. I mean, Matt was always this sensitive. Very, I honestly think from the work that I've done too, that people who are very deeply feeling people, those are the ones that tend to get caught in the snare of drugs and alcohol because they
Mm,
don't want to feel all the feelings, right?
right.
And so he was this gone for a little while because he was fighting against all that, and it was hard for me because I missed him.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
missed him.
Right. And when
Um,
you did see him, you're like, who is this?
yeah, and I know I think that I didn't handle it well a lot of times. I think I shamed him. I think I was angry. I think I said things I wish I could take back. Um, and on the other hand, I'm trying to rescue him and drag him along to somewhere. I didn't even know where at the time. I just wanted him to be better.
Yeah.
Just wanted him to be safe.
And what do we do? What is the answer? Are we supposed to respond as parents
Yeah.
when your child is doing things that you don't know if they are going to survive?
hmm Yeah, and that was the scariest part of it was I was by that point in the counseling world and I was working with people and I knew the overdose rates and I knew what was going on in the
Mm,
streets and I knew all these things were happening and I was terrified. I
sure.
was absolutely terrified. And I know people, we have a family member who's lost two sons to this disease.
Mm,
And I know I have a couple of other friends who've lost a child and then we all know people who have lost children to addiction and it's terrifying and you're helpless. It's a very helpless feeling, but in a lot of ways I can call I can call it idolatry with an I,
Sure.
because that consumes your mind, that consumes your thought, what can I do? What can I do? And that is where the surrender and the giving it to God for real has to happen, because there's nothing I can do. There's nothing a parent can do.
Right. So not only did you see that he needed to surrender to God, but you are saying you as a parent
Oh,
needed
absolutely.
to surrender to the
Yeah,
Lord.
I was drowning. I was trying to pull him out, and instead of pulling him out, I was getting pulled in, because I was just so frightened.
Yes.
So,
Yes. So, on an extremely personal note,
Mhm.
what did your conversations with the Lord sound like? Like,
help me. Help me.
and if parents are in the midst of this, eh, what does God understand about this? How did He rescue your heart in the midst of it, um, as a response to your help me cries?
That's a very, very good question. He was just there. Is all I know how to say. He was there. I could feel him. I could feel him. I can remember the surrender, and it was it was recently. It wasn't a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was right before the 3 years that started.
I think we all everybody
We just
got to a point where you all let me go to go, not let me go in a sense that I got to turn my back type thing. It was just like, I can't do anything about this.
yeah.
And I had gotten to a point that I was just done. I was so tired. I was so exhausted. I was so just over it all. And I was to a point where I was just on my knees, kind of figuratively and, kind of physically a lot of times when I was in Nashville, just going, and I didn't know it was God. I was talking to God. It's kind of a confusing thing to talk about. So I never it's not like I denounced Jesus. I still always felt him there. I knew I was saved. I never felt like I was just disagreed with everything. I just questioned a lot of things and I wasn't sure how I felt about a lot of things. I was being attacked on my faith as far as I could see on every level of belief that I could come up with. And then I just started feeling surrender happen. And they talk about it a lot in treatment when you have to come to the end and you just got to surrender to the program is what they call it. It's a lot of times it's NA and AA, that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, those programs are absolutely 110% helpful, but they can become an idol too if you're not careful.
Thank you.
So I just want to throw that out there.
No,
But what it
that's
does
helpful.
do is one of the very important processes of what they do in those programs is a spiritual connection. They say you can call it whatever God you want to. I knew it to be what it was. And because I was going to all those things and because I was doing all those treatment things, I was unknowingly just praying again. And I mean, unknowingly, but I was getting into the habit of praying again. I was talking to God and I was feeling God again. And I was starting to be like, oh yeah, I remember this. And then, it took probably about 6 months, 7 months. I think it was about the time I came back. Like once I left Knoxville, I had to come back here. I had been clean for 7 months and had to go to jail
That
and
hurt.
do some jail time. After going to treatment and after doing all the right things, I had to come pay the piper. And that was part of the process. And it was, I was blessed in the way that happened. I was able to do work release and got to see my kids and I got to make money while I was in there. And that kind of launched me in a different trajectory, coming home and getting back in church and feeling God again and being like, oh yeah, I remember this now.
And there was a little baby girl
Yeah.
in the middle of
Yeah. So and that was God. I was leaving to go to treatment and, I was like, honey, I won't see you for a while. So then a month and a half later, she says, oh, I'm pregnant. And there's my baby girl. And, she is absolutely everything, that, and it's so funny that, I prayed basically, from the time that whole situation happened. I wanted kids and I knew how much kids meant to me, the whole situation with the Gabriel thing. And my heart bled for kids, and I had Neelan. Neelan was, oh my gosh. And then Peyton happens, and I had always prayed, I wanted a big brother for my, I wanted a boy and a girl so bad. Like I wanted to be girl dad so bad, and I can't even tell you how bad I am so glad. Like I love being a girl dad.
She's so precious.
So I prayed for so long about having, the older brother for the little girl and like all this stuff, and then it happens as I'm coming out of this thing and I'm coming into recovery. I get this beautiful baby girl, and my son is just the perfect big brother. I mean, he's always looking out for her. He's always, they're perfect. And it's I went through a lot of dark, but there were several silver linings everywhere. And the blessings on the other end of it have been just too many to count, because I have an in-depth and a very intimate understanding of something that, not a lot of people really make it through, to be quite
Yes.
honest. A lot of people, the statistics are not good. Statistics are really, really bad. Um, and I've got this testimony, and I've got these things that I can tell about my story to reach people that might not otherwise get reached, or might be confused or have questions, and after I look at it, I can't regret any of it. And I can't say I wish things would have been different, because it made me and transformed me into what I am. And one of my favorite things that I heard early on in treatment is, and I want anybody who's listening to this, and anybody that might question this, to hear me when I say this: addicts are the gems of the earth.
Hmm.
They have been through more than you will ever see in your entire life, probably. And they have felt more than you will ever understand.
Mhm.
So if people come through that and they can come out of that, the respect for life that you have, I don't take a day for granted with my kids. And I might do that. I might have taken for granted stuff with my kids if I didn't almost die 3 years ago. So, or if I didn't go through what I went through, I might not respect the things that I have today, or respect the love for God that I have today, and the faith that I have today. So those things have put me in a position where I love my life, and I'm thankful for everything I went through. So I can't look back on it and say, God, I don't know why you did that to me. I really wish you would have just, it would have been so much softer if I'd have just had kids and had this good job and never went to jail. But would it have been? Or would it have been just mundane, and, things happened the way they were supposed to happen, and
Mhm.
and God dictated that, and it was ordained, and it's how it happened. I'm just honored and blessed and thankful that I got to be on this side of it, not on the other side of the statistics, because I've lost two cousins to it. I've lost, I don't know how many friends that I've seen overdose, and the people that I was not necessarily close to with it. I know, I mean, it's just too many to count.
Oh,
The people that,
I appreciate you sharing that, for several reasons, and I believe what you're saying about, people addicts, recovered addicts being gems. That, there's a girl that I'm friends with who, her love for the Lord is just, you can see it all over her face.
Mhm.
The joy she carries and the passion she has for an understanding of knowing that she needs God
Mhm. Yeah.
every
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think sometimes when we've not walked that close, to all of the pieces that you have walked towards, we forget as Christians what our real need is of Christ every
Mm.
day.
Mhm.
And we can forget that we need to be obedient,
Mhm.
that we need, I was just reading this morning about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Well, I don't want just the beginning.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so how do we seek that fear of the Lord? What does that look like?
Mhm.
Well, chapter 112 of Psalms says the answer to that. It says, we joy in knowing and responding to his commandments, following his commandments. What is his commands? Ugh. that's us being obedient
Mhm.
and being joyful in our obedience. I think we do that with our kids, and telling them to be joyful when you're doing that chore I told you to do and have the right attitude.
Mhm.
I did that for myself when I told her that, but when I read that scripture, I was like, thank you, God. I am teaching her something that as an adult, I need to have joy in my obedience to God.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that gives us peace.
Mhm.
That gives us that relationship and that love for Him that is the wisdom that
Mhm.
we need to live our lives every day. I mean, we can draw nuggets from you and from a mom who's walked in this pain.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful that we can live this life together
Mhm.
for that reason.
I do want to say there's no playbook.
Oh,
There's no like, you do this, this, and this, your kid's gonna be okay. And there's no like, there's no standard, there's no book on it. I mean, there are books, but
Matt, I don't
listen,
like that.
like I know nobody likes to hear
I
it.
don't like
It's
that.
not fun to hear, but the only one that can do anything about it is God. And there's a lot of prayer in it, and I every situation is going to be unique and be as different as the individual that it's going through. So there's no set of standards like you got to do A, B, C, and this person's going to be okay. I think every situation is as unique as the individual, and that individual is going to need different things than I needed, than somebody else needed, than anybody else needs. So I think it's a lot of surrender, a lot of prayer, and just if you're in the situation, reach out, get help. Please come find me. Please come find me. I will talk to you all day long. Please come find me.
I really appreciate the fact that within your story, you were a Christian already whenever you fell into addiction. And I know Christians today who go to church every Sunday who struggle with addiction. We're human. It's not talked about. And I appreciate you being real and honest and authentic about that, because I think people who are struggling think they don't measure up.
You struggle alone
Yes.
Yeah,
most of the
there's a
time.
lot of
Yes.
shame.
And they think I can't go to church
Absolutely.
because
You don't
that
want to.
is full of people who don't struggle like I struggle. And there are plenty of people who struggle. And the fact that you used to struggle means that you have to be mindful every day
Absolutely.
of those addictions.
Absolutely.
I have not talked to you about those specific pieces, but I know that that is just the truth of anyone who's ever struggled with addiction. And that is kind of the message. It's a little hard sometimes for people who are Christians to swallow that you say, I was a Christian. I grew up in a Christian home. I had this real experience with the Lord. And it is no doubt in my mind, but I walked this path, and it was a path of destruction, and I did not follow the Lord's in obedience to Him, as we were just discussing. I did not walk in what I knew was truth. And, I also, as you were telling your story, just wonder if your pain was greater because you already knew the truth.
I definitely, I felt, there were so many times I felt cursed. Like every time I'd wreck a car, every time I'd get arrested, like I'm like, I'm cursed, like everything. But when I look back on it, that was God holding me from going a little bit too far. You know, I always felt like I was just the unluckiest person in the world. Like I always got in trouble. I always
many
got
cars.
caught.
Yeah.
So many cars. I always got caught some way or another. I mean, it was just.
And if
but
God is holding you and you know He is love and He is truth in the back of your mind because of that relationship, the Holy Spirit is there starving to death,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
He's hungry.
Yeah,
He's
trying to get out
hungry
so
for
much.
relationship
Yep.
with His Father. And so you are I just see that being a more painful, difficult, complex.
I think it was. It's kind of, you can't put your finger on that's I like at the time I could not sit there and go, well, I'm feeling tormented because I'm just didn't go to church this Sunday. It's not like that. It's like your soul is just tormented because everything that's going on is just so far removed from grace and from faith. Oh, not grace. It's so removed from faith and so removed from any kind of belief system or any kind of morality or anything like that. It's so far removed from it that you don't know that's what it is, but you feel it. You
Yeah.
feel something. You feel
Yeah.
empty inside. You feel this huge hole that God can fill. That's the only thing that can fill it.
And having had that filled in the past, I just wonder if it is more difficult, more painful.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure
Because you're like, I had this with Jesus as my Savior, filling my heart with all the things that I
it was
needed,
so
and
hard
now
to
it's
come
gone.
to church
Yeah.
because like I couldn't walk in the building without crying.
Mm.
Like really, like that was one of the reasons I didn't come to church for so long. I couldn't walk in there without feeling guilt,
Yeah.
just absolute overwhelming guilt. So yeah, it was
So
there.
that conviction.
It was there. I didn't want to put a name on it or put
Yeah.
a label on it. Like this is the reason, but it was there. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Absolutely.
So it was a draw to surrender,
Mhm.
like you've been talking about the surrender. So
Mhm.
you were compelled to do that and fighting it.
Yeah. Yeah, surrender is like that's a lot of people. Anytime I've told my story as far as at any kind of meetings and stuff like that, uh, I always say if I could define or if I could put one word on my recovery, if I could say there's one thing that defined my recovery, surrender is that word. I have said that over and over.
That's so great. So as you talk about surrender, I want to just mention God's faithfulness for Him giving us freedom and restoration. And in after the surrender, like we can rely on Him to give us all the pieces that we need to restore our soul and to come to Him and keep coming to Him
Mhm.
as we are struggling with those pieces just on and on. I'm so grateful for you all being willing to
Thank
share
you.
your
Thank you
story.
for having us.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm thankful that you just so quickly said, if anybody needs to come to me,
Oh, absolutely.
I'm so grateful for that. We need to be willing to share our weaknesses and our struggles and where we've fallen short and praise the Lord for where He's placed us because of our weaknesses.
And I think if I could say one thing about if someone is dealing with someone that is in like you, if I say any piece of advice to them is just love them like Jesus would.
Yes.
That's the only like just love them like Jesus. Be Jesus to that person because whether they grew up in church or whether they grew up in darkness, they don't see love through you or me or Jennifer Miller. They see love through Jesus.
Mhm.
And if you are, if you show that love to that person, that is going to get a lot quicker of a response than saying, well, you need to get better. You need to
You need to do this.
You need to do
Right.
this, and that.
Stop doing that.
Love
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
Love them. That's it. Just love them.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting that you use the word surrender because it's the same word I used. Surrendering
Yes.
to the Lord and letting the Lord take care of it for
Very
you
good.
and trusting Him, even if it doesn't turn out like you want it.
I love it. I love it because He is sovereign in all these things, and we can surrender to Him. We can trust Him in that. Thank you again.
Thank
It's
you.
been
Thank you for
awesome.
having
Thank you
us.
for sharing your story, Matt and Jennifer, for His glory.